You're probably going to nod your head when I ask this, but are you getting lower back pain from sitting down? I'll give you the solution straight after this, but you have to promise me one thing. If you like this video, or if it even helps you, share it with a friend. And also, subscribe to my channel. It really supports me in the long term because we want to be able to help as many people as possible. So I've been working in this industry for a few years now, and there's always one thing that I always get from people who sit down for work. My back hurts. And so they always go through all these complications and solutions that they always do, and they always go through the usual things. They go for a massage, they rest, and then it feels better. But then it gets worse, and it comes back each time. So what I'm going to show you is, first of all, why does it happen? And second of all, the things that you need to do for the long term to prevent it from happening again. It's very simple. Now, if you haven't seen my other series or my other video about text neck or the neck pain that you get from desk sitting down, we're gonna get you to watch that because more than likely you're having that too. But also saying that it's a bit of a relationship from that neck pain to what we're seeing in the lower back. And that's what we call upper cross syndrome, and this is what we call lower cross syndrome. So if you haven't already, quickly watch that. It's only about 5 or 6 minutes, and then I'm gonna help you out with your lower back. So the first thing you have to know about this lower back thing is it's coming into what we call a pattern of lower cross syndrome. Now, what is lower cross syndrome? Just like upper cross syndrome, you have muscles that are tight and you have muscles that are weak. So the tight muscles that you have is, first of all, that lower back. And I'm going to show you stretches that can help you out. The next muscle that is tight is also your hip flexors. Now, there are two hip flexors that we're going to look at. One is called the iliopsoas, which connects from the hip all the way into your spine. And the second one is called the rectus femoris, which actually goes through the hip and also past the knee as well. So it actually crosses two joints. So I'm going to show you a bunch of stretches and exercises that can help you lengthen those muscles. Now, believe it or not, you also have muscles that are weak. Now, excuse the pun, but you have a weak ass booty. So we're going to help you out with some exercises to strengthen those glute muscles. And we're also going to help you out with strengthening your core muscles. Now, it's not going to be things like crunches like you may think, but it's going to be more about planks and stability-based exercises because squeezing a muscle is going to be more effective when it comes to actually position and also strengthening as well. So now that we know what muscles are tight, we're going to show you the actual exercises and how to do them. So the first exercise we call banded crab walks, and it actually works with the muscle called the glute medius. Using the band, we want to pop it to the top of the knee or the ankles if you feel more comfortable. Now you're going to see an error that most people do. They actually have a bit of a crooked stance because they're trying to stand too wide. The second error that you see a lot of people do is when they step, they have their feet together. You don't want to do this because you want to keep tension on the glutes and on the band. So have a watch again. You want to get into a position, push off, and keep your distance as equal as possible to keep the tension on the glutes. The second exercise is called a glute bridge or glute hip thrust. And it works the glute maximus, but with the band, we also work the glute medius. So what we're trying to do with this is we're really trying to squeeze our bum cheeks together. And I always like to give the imagery of a $100 note between the bum cheeks, and you don't want to let go of it. Now here you can see the first error where people overextend and tend to use that lower back. This is not what we want to do, because the muscles in the lower back are already tight. What we want to try and do is keep the feet nice and wide, unlike what you see here, and push through your bum muscles. So once again, have a look through, feet about shoulder width apart, push through your bum, and don't overextend. You're definitely going to feel those glutes burn. Now for those of you who like a bit of extra resistance and a challenge, here's the banded glute hip thrust with a barbell. Just like the normal one that you would see on the floor, you can overextend, so try not to let this happen. When you overextend, you tend to use your lower back muscles, which we want to avoid. Once again, same rules apply, hip width apart, toes facing forward, band on stretch, and push through the bum, not letting the $100 bill fall out. So welcome to your first stretch. This is what we call for the erector spinae and also the quadratus lumborum muscles, but we're just going to group them as lower back. The stretch that you're going to see here is called the child's pose, but we want to get an extra stretch to make sure that muscle gets longer. So what do we do here? We actually move towards the side and push your shoulder blade away from your hip. This way you can get a bit of a stretch. You may also feel a bit of a stretch underneath your armpit. That's completely fine, but what you want to do is try and take a breath, breathe in and breathe out each time you move into a stretch. Hold this for about at least 30 seconds. The next stretch of the series is more about using your pelvis and also the lower back itself. So, once again, the lower back muscles, the erectors, and also the quadratus lumborum. I like using this to really teach people how to tilt their pelvis as well. So if you can have a look, you want to tilt the pelvis in, almost as if you're pushing it towards your nose and your shoulders. I also like to combine this once again with using the floor exercises while I'm down there. So I'll do a few reps of this and go back into the child's pose if I need to. For this movement, we call it the cat-camel, and I like to do about 10 reps, holding each position for about 3 to 5 seconds. This stretch here is for the hip flexors, looking at mostly rectus femoris, but also we're getting iliopsoas here. As you can see, I've got my knee, my hip, and my shoulder stacked in line because that's what's going to get the most stretch in those muscles. Be careful with this one because if you lean forward, you take away that tension. Now for those of you who are thinking, I can't do this, don't worry, I'm going to show you another variation. Like all stretches I'm going to teach you today, hold it for 20 seconds, minimum, up to 30 seconds, and if you can, twice on each side. So this is another variation that we've added, and if you ever get stuck on these stretches, don't be afraid to rewatch this. So this is the hip flexor stretch, added with the shoulders to get a deeper stretch inside the iliopsoas. Moving the shoulder away from the hip helps us stretch this, and the cue that you can use is get the ear to be as close as you can to your elbow while pulling it away from your hip. So if you're thinking, I can't do those stretches, don't worry, here's the variation I was talking about before. Get your feet like a lunge stance, make sure you stack your knee, shoulder, and hip still, and then pull away. You'll still feel the same stretch. Now it's time for the fun stuff. This is the abdominals. Now it looks like I'm just pushing a bar away from me, pushing a band away from me, but what we're really doing is getting the band to be pulled and it's trying to twist me, and what I'm trying to do is fight that twist. Now if you missed it, I'm going to show you that cue once again in a moment, because there's one very important thing we like to do with the hips. So hopefully you picked it out. So if you did see it, it's about the pelvis, and we call this the posterior pelvic tilt. This does help engage the core muscles so we can actually strengthen them up. This is a good one to practice outside of all the exercises I've shown you, because even in exercises like the plank, you can tend to feel it in your lower back as opposed to your core. So have a watch how we do the plank here, and I'm doing it on an incline just so I can focus on core stability, and I want to get a posterior pelvic tilt nice and slowly. So practice this one to strengthen the core effectively.
So now you know some of the exercises and the stretches that you can do if you're experiencing lower back pain, especially if you happen to be one of those people who sit down quite a lot. Now it's very important to know this. If you're doing some of these exercises and it gets worse, it's a good time to stop. And we need to understand that lower back pain can cause from multiple things. It's not as just simple as let's do this, but it's better than doing nothing. You have to start somewhere. I highly recommend that you see a local practitioner and someone that you trust. And for anyone in the Perth and WA region, don't be afraid to contact us and you can book in with us so we can do an assessment as well. If you have any questions, don't be afraid to comment on this video, like it if you found it useful, and share it with a friend as well. We hope to see you again next week, Wednesday.